Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I might consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Well, this big, beautiful bill must be so beautiful that we're debating it at 4:15 in the morning to avoid the scrutiny of the public for a piece of legislation that was altered just hours ago. I would challenge some members on the other side to take an exam on what was added to this legislation before we have a chance to vet it. And my friend, the chairman, he said that his modest youth, how challenging it was. I share a similar story. So you know what? We can both thank Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal for those opportunities. And when he was talking about growth rates, I thought he was going to say, bring back Bill Clinton, because that's where those growth rates came from. So the cat's out of the bag. $2.3 trillion was borrowed in 2017 to pay for a tax cut that overwhelmingly went to people at the very top. So what are we about to do this evening, or this morning, or last night? We are going to borrow $4 trillion, and with interest payments over the next 10 years, $5 trillion to justify a tax cut for the billionaire class. That's what this is about. Or as the gentleman from Kentucky said, and no raving liberal, you're talking about adding $30 trillion to the debt over the next few years. 14 million people are going to lose their health insurance to pay for this tax cut for wealthy people. We got Medicaid, we got food assistance, child care, health care, and you know what? Everybody in this chamber, every member of this House, you should call your local hospitals and ask them to lay out the formula for how their pay works in terms of reimbursements. Overwhelmingly, it's almost 2/3 from Medicare and Medicaid, and this is going to lead, particularly in red states, to closure. So let me give you some numbers I think that are really intriguing, despite that argument that we heard from the other side about how all this money is going to go to people at the lower end. Their slogan ought to be, we're rich and we're not going to take it anymore. That's where this argument is headed. So let me give you some numbers. If you made $1 million last year, you're going to get $81,000 of tax relief. If you made less than $50,000, guess what? Not quite so lucky. But you know what? $1 a day goes a long way, because that's where the numbers land. When they talk about broken promises, I listened to a Republican tonight on TV, a younger guy. He said, well, we reject what CBO has had to say. In the Ways and Means Committee in the tax world, this is scripture. That's how important it is. We might not like the answers we get from time to time. We might be upset about it, but we know that the people who have delivered that are not Democrats, they're not Republicans, they're economists, tax attorneys, and CPAs. So let me just remind everybody on the Republican side about a couple of other things that I think are really important. Most of them supported postal reform. That cost money. Republicans voted for the CHIPS Act. That cost money. They voted for the infrastructure bill. That cost money. 30 of them voted for the Butch-Lewis Act. That cost money. How about the PAC Act for our veterans? That costs money. The Inflation Reduction Act, despite their efforts to deride it, their members are going to groundbreakings and taking advantage of it right now. One piece of testimony the other night in the committee said that there's one congressional district that is receiving $6 billion of investment. Boy, I'd hate to explain that to my constituents, that I was sending $6 billion back to Washington. I call attention to this because they supported these issues along the way, and now they want an excuse to cut taxes for people at the very top. And that's where these tax cuts are going, to people at the very top. That is not to be denied. I hope as we listen in the next few minutes to the contrast that we would offer if we were in the majority, where we could agree tonight on the very basic fact that I'm going to offer. We could agree with 98% of the tax legislation if they kept the number at 400,000 and fewer. So people under $400,000 would keep their tax cuts, and people at the top would go to 39.6. Those are Clinton-Obama rates, and they work fine for the country. We all have some degree of honor to keep here. How about those soldiers from Afghanistan and Iraq? They deserve our care. Closing veterans service offices? I just did a town hall with veterans. They're astounded by what's happening already. I'm looking forward to the next 25 minutes of debate on this side and the next 25 minutes of debate on the other side, because I'm telling you, they're trying to sell you at 4:22 in the morning a bad piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time.